Good morning, everybody. And thank you so much for joining us for Spirit, the stimulating program initiative for retirees that inspires thought. I'm Rebbetzin Judi Steinig, Director of Community Programs for the Orthodox Union, and it's my honor to co-host, to coordinate and host this program. The OU created Spirit several years ago, first as an on-site program, and now we're happy to present it as an online program for baby boomers, for retirees, not yet retirees, empty nesters, sandwich generation parents, and seniors. Every one of us who is looking for educational, physical, and spiritual stimulation. At this point in time, it is so difficult for everybody, and because we're all still sheltering in, and Spirit is the perfect way for each one of us to engage in a virtual setting. Today's session will be a very unique experience, and hopefully it will be the first of several. It is called R&R, Retire and Relocate, and we're going to be exploring two very different communities in Florida that have been popular for retirees. As I said, we hope this will be the first of many sessions that will be exploring different types of communities. We're very happy to welcome to the Spirit Forum Yitz and Shelly Tuchman of Hollywood, Florida, and Wendy and Jay Goldberg of Century Village, Boca, Florida. So I'm going to be asking some questions, and they're going to do their best to answer it. I just want you to know that a number of questions have come in from our viewers, and we appreciate them, but not all of them are ones that we can talk about today. The Tuchmans and the Goldbergs are going to be sharing their personal experiences, which is what we all want to hear. They're not, I don't know if anybody's a lawyer here, but we're not asking anyone to talk about anything legal. Oh, okay. Either which way, we're not paying a referral fee or anything. So we're not going to ask anyone to share any legal experience or anything else. These are personal experiences. So I just want everybody to know that. And it's very possible that some of you that are watching may have already relocated and you've had a totally different experience. And that's also okay. We thank them for sharing what their experiences have been, and Baruch Hashem, it's been positive. Okay, so I just first want to start with Yitz and Shelly. Please tell us a little bit about yourselves.
So I'm an attorney admitted in New York State, and I had my own practice that was organized first by my parents, and then I continued after their death. And it was a very interesting, unique kind of legal practice in a very specialized area. And when we saw the handwriting on the wall that it was time to relocate, we started taking the steps necessary to exit my practice, and Shelly will tell you about her work experience.
Let me just ask you, where were you living before you came to Florida?
Brooklyn, New York, in Flatbush. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. I was an educator and administrator, school administrator for 44 years. I had a brief career with the New York City Board of Education in the junior and senior high school division. I then spent a few years at Yeshiva University High School for Boys in Brooklyn. But my major work experience started in September of 1980 when I was recruited by the Shalamith School of Brooklyn board, who at that time were forming the Shalamith High School for Girls in Brooklyn, which was going to open in September 1980. And I was asked to be a founding teacher of the high school. So over my 32 years, until I retired in June of 2012, I organized the social studies department. I was the director of college and career guidance. I was the director of alumni affairs, and lastly, as assistant principal.
Tell me, when did you guys move to Florida? What year?
2012.
Oh, so it was right after. Okay, thank you. Wendy and Jay, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves?
I'm not done.
Good morning. I served as a junior high school dean, earth science teacher, social studies teacher, and track coach in Woodside, New York. I've always had an interest in American history. I enjoy visiting lots of historical sites, which we've done as we've driven down to Florida and driven back home. I also, we moved down, we didn't move, I'm sorry. We purchased this the condo here in January of 2010.
No, 19, yeah.
January 2010. In addition, we lived in, we still have a house in Fresh Meadows, New York, and we'll explain more about our travel times and what we do. I also found the better way. I retired back in 2004 and I kept my wife working. Everybody may not agree with that, but lots of husbands seem to like that idea.
Who made dinner at night?
As a matter of fact, since I was retired, I did the shopping and I did some of the cooking. I did the laundry, so I pulled my share.
His mother brought him up as well. He did laundry and all that stuff too. My name is Wendy Goldberg, and I've been married to this wonderful gentleman for 48 years next month. We raised 3 children, 2 girls, 1 boy. All 3 of them are married, and all 3 of them have given us 12 grandchildren. Right, and we lived in a small incorporated village in Nassau County called Belrose Village for 17 years. Before that, we were in Flushing, and actually 21 years we were there. And as Jay said, we moved to the Fresh Meadows Hillcrest area in 1999. I've been in education all my life. That's what I loved. I was in the Department of Education. I was in a variety of districts within Queens at the a variety of districts within New York City in the very beginning, but I have taught classrooms. I have taught ESL, mostly ESL throughout my career to all levels from kindergarten through adult. I was an adjunct ESL professional for Fordham University. And I was an assistant principal and then a principal of an elementary school in downtown Flushing, Queens. And as Jay said, we have a family here in Florida. Maybe you didn't say yet. We do have a daughter and her husband and 4 wonderful children who are here in Florida. And by the way, just for our children's sake, our grandchildren range in age from 4 to 21 next month. So it's a nice gamut.
Okay, so as long as we're talking to you guys, how did you decide? So you guys are in Century Village in Boca. How did you decide to pick that community to live in, as opposed to any other place, and the fact that it's a Century Village?
We wanted a house.
Well,
and please explain to everybody who might not know what the difference between Century Village and other places are. Okay.
Century Village is a senior community, 55 and over, in order to live here. And we'll talk more about Century Village itself and what it has to offer when we get further into the questions. There are 4 different Century Villages located in Florida. We are a little prejudiced because we feel this one is the best, but we'll get into that later. The way we ended up here is kind of interesting. My daughter, our oldest daughter, who lived in downtown in Kew Garden Hills, decided to relocate to Florida. And we went to visit her in 2009. And while here, we met in the synagogue on Shabbos. We met the agent who sold her house. Our daughter introduced her to us. And before you know it, she said, why don't you take a look at some apartments I have in Century Village? And we said, not really, because my wife was still working and I really wasn't interested in relocating down here or even coming down here as a second home. Long story short, she convinced us. We took a ride. She showed us around Century Village. And interestingly enough, we knew no one in Century Village, had never been in Century Village a day in our lives, knew very little about Century Village other than 40 years ago, one of the first Century Villages was in West Palm. And Wendy and I went to visit our aunt and uncle, Aunt Rose and Uncle Murray. And we came by, said hello to them, spent a couple hours here. And when we left, we said, gee, what a nice place for old people. And we said, it's great for Uncle Murray because they play cards in the clubhouse, and Aunt Rose knows how to play mahjong. wow, isn't that nice? These old people have somewhere to go. Did not give it a second thought. End of the story is, after seeing a number of apartments here, knowing very little about Century Village, I'm not sure why, but this was Hashgacha Protis, divine intervention. Somehow we decided to purchase the apartment. Again, not thinking we'd spend lots of time because my wife was still working. And again, we didn't know anyone and we hadn't been here before at all. Mm-hmm. But it has a happy ending because we're very glad we did.
It's funny when you say, you know, for old people, the first time I was in Deerfield and Century is with my work first for National Council of Young Israel and now for the OU, I had an image also of all old people, and I walked out and I go, wow, they look really young to me. So it's, you know, just different experiences people have. As far as I'm concerned, it's a very young group in the Centuries. Okay, Yitz and Shelly, tell us about how you're in a whole different setup being in Hollywood. So can you tell us how you chose and what it's like there?
Yes.
We're having, can you, it's hard to hear you, Shelly.
Okay, so when considering where to retire, relocate, I think you have to explore and consider three questions, and that is, where do I want to live? Where do I want to daven? And where do I want to shop? Okay, now Yitz and I had decided that we wanted to retire in Southern Florida. After dealing with many snow and ice storms, our mantra was, one day we're going to be sitting on the beach in Hollywood, Florida. So we decided though, as opposed to a Century Village, that we wanted to live in a non-gated, open neighborhood with our own home. We settled in a neighborhood called Emerald Hills in Hollywood, Florida. Hollywood, Florida is equidistant between Miami and Boca Raton, and the Orthodox community is about 2 miles west of I-95 at exit 22. The housing in Emerald Hills are mainly one family, detached, one story, which are easy on the knees, ranch houses with bedroom, 3 to 5 bedrooms, 2 to 4 baths, and backyards. It is a aesthetically beautiful neighborhood with well-kept homes and lush landscaping. There is no housing in Hollywood for the over 55 exclusively. It is an open neighborhood, and the age population is 0 to 100 or more. We bought in Emerald Hills, which is non-gated and does not have an HOA. So just to explain that there are other housing opportunities in Hollywood. There are some gated areas, some gated sections, and there are some that are governed by the HOAs. But
can you explain to us what an HOA is?
Yeah, an HOA stands for Homeowners Association, which is a group selected by the homeowners that is responsible for making the rules and regulations for the homeowners. We are not subject to any rules and regulations. It is a totally open neighborhood. Now, the second question to answer is where to daven. The sterling reputation of the unusual Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale, was a major factor in us moving to Hollywood. The rabbi at the time was Rabbi Edward Davis, and he and his Rebbetzin Meira built the neighborhood up for. He was here for 36 years, and until now it is a huge shul community. We now are currently, our current rabbi is Yosef Weinstock and his assistant rabbi, Adam Freiberg, who are very hardworking, and the shul offers a variety of shiurim and minyanim and social activities for all ages.
Wait, Shelly, you got to talk to the mic because we're missing you.
For all ages.
And if you could just share with us a little bit about the shopping. I know you have plenty of shopping.
About the shopping, the neighborhood now boasts 3 all kosher supermarkets and dozens of restaurants, which makes our shopping simple and easy and enhanced. And I just want to say that since we're living here, over 200 families have joined the shul, and now it is a community of over 700 families. And finally, I'd like to say that we are only 15 minutes from Hollywood Beach, so I can say we did it.
Very nice. But by the way, just for anybody who remembers who was with us at the middle of April, when we did grandparenting from afar, that was Rabbi Edward and Meira Davis who started the shul, and I'm very proud to call them close friends of mine. So it is a beautiful, wonderful, wonderful community. Wendy and Jay, can you tell us a little bit, you started telling us a bit about Century Village. Can you tell us a little bit more about what Century Village has to offer? Thank you.
Wait, I just want to interrupt for 1 second. I agreed with Shelly. I grew up in a housing project in Queens, New York. And one of my goals was always to have my own 4 walls around me, i.e. a house. And for the first 6 years we were married, we lived in an apartment. And ever since, after 6 years of being in an apartment, we moved to a house. And I never wanted to be in anything except a house as well. So when we were thinking about Florida, we had a discussion back and forth about an apartment or a house. And I was pretty adamant about, I wanted a house, I wanted my own 4 walls. And when we came to Century Village, even though we had no intention originally of relocating here for any length of time, we saw the amount of activities and opportunities and experiences that we could have here, which would be more conducive to us as we got older. And Jay's going to talk a lot about that.
In terms of Century Village, there are a plethora of activities. That's why when Judi referred to people being old or young, so to speak, you can become very involved if you so wish to. And in fact, over the last 6, 7, 8 years, a lot of the people who have been retiring or have been coming down here to the village are the younger group, meaning the 55 to 60 age group. And the activities here run the gamut from maybe 50 or more clubs that meet regularly of every stripe, every fashion, that meet regularly in the clubhouse. In addition, there are plenty of sports available. Tennis, for one, there are multiple tennis courts, and there is an active tennis club. I don't want to brag, but about 5 years ago, we started playing tennis. First time in our life, which shows you're never too old to start. We became involved in tennis, and my wife joined the traveling tennis team in the village here and became one of the top players. I just wanted to throw that in.
Thank you.
In addition, something popular down south here and out west is something called pickleball, which has its own courts down here. In addition, every association has its own pool for the individual association, and there are 16 of them here. And of course, there is a very large Olympic-sized swimming pool, indoor and outdoor, at the clubhouse. People here are interested in staying in shape. There's a state-of-the-art gymnasium in the clubhouse. And for those people who want to play cards or just meet, just talk, socialize, the clubhouse is available. And contrary to popular belief, you do not have to know how to play Mahjong to get into the village. There are plenty of Mahjong games, but it's not mandatory.
Right, but we also were very happy with the fact that there were shows, pretty good shows at the clubhouse on a very regular basis, in season and also off season, that are comparatively priced actually they're pretty low priced compared to on the outside. There are free movies. Every week there's a new free movie at the clubhouse, and these are current movies. And also along with the clubs, I mean, I learned needlepoint, I learned 3D art, and there's just a lot of activities that you can do here. And clubs, and not aside from clubs, the parks are so close. We have a myriad number and types of parks that are within like 15 minutes of where we are. The beach is approximately 15 minutes, 20 minutes max. The shopping is outrageous. We have all kinds of shopping from regular supermarkets to specialty stores, produce. We have a farm 5 minutes from here where you give them $10 and they pack your car with all sorts of fresh vegetables. And again, everything is within distance. And we like the fact that as we're getting older, there are buses that go within the village that can take you anywhere within the village, which is convenient. If you don't have a car, it's free. There are also buses that you meet at the clubhouse. They take you outside of the village. If you want to go to a store, if you want to go to a restaurant, we have that. And again, all the clubs that have their many, many activities within the club.
Also, I forgot to mention there are classes in terms of secular and religious, meaning the clubhouse offers a variety of different classes on many different subjects. And our shul has a diverse amount of classes that they offer as well. There are 2 shuls located physically within the village itself. One is conservative, one is Orthodox. That's another thing, by the way. The village is very eclectic because we have everybody here. Okay, there's an Orthodox shul, conservative shul, there are Reform Jews here, and there are non-Jews here also. Which, by the way, just as a point of information, Jay and I, for about the last 6 years or so, have been co-chairs of an outreach program from our synagogue. We call it Century Village Connects. And we have programs also, and anyone from the Century Village community can come. And this way here, we really build bridges between all the different factors and levels of Judaism, of people who are here.
Thank you. Now, I know that you had mentioned that, you have children right in the area. So that's certainly, a support system. Before I get to Yitz and Shelly to ask them, what about healthcare? You guys are snowbirds, so you're back and forth. Forget COVID. We'll get to that at the end. But on a normal non-COVID year, how do you navigate healthcare when you're only there? With God's help, you don't need it to address it. But if somebody is something, that's the best. How do you address that as snowbirds?
By the way, I forgot to mention there's another benefit I found down here in Florida that I didn't realize. The amount of senior discounts that are available. It's fantastic. And the bonus is you only have to be 55. So everybody gets senior discounts that year. But in terms of healthcare, there was one advantage, by the way, when I know Shelly said she also worked for the Board of Ed. For example, if you have GHI or one of those health plans, it's difficult outside of New York, New Jersey even, to find doctors who accept GHI, okay? Down here, again, it's not that easy, but for those who reach Medicare age, there's, again, a plethora of doctors available. Also in Century Village, there is a medical service called AMR. And if you're part of the village here, part of the fees that you pay here for the Sen West, the company that owns the village, pay for ambulance service, free ambulance service here that will take you to a hospital, that will take you to doctor's appointments, that will take you to medical appointments. That's part of the service that's offered here for Century Village residents. And needless to say, there are, if you look at all the local newspapers, and there's a newspaper that's published within the village, by the way, that's published by the village, for the village. And there are a number of ads for doctors who are in the geriatric field, whether it's
or general field,
or general as well, but certainly geared. There's no shortage of ads for hearing aids. But the point is, there are within close and easily accessible areas medical help, and you shouldn't need it, but 2 local hospitals within a few minutes of the village here. Do you want to answer?
Okay, thank you. Yitz and Shelly, I just wanted to ask you, so your situation, can you tell us about, what your support system is in Hollywood and what your experiences have been, because you're there all the time.
Right, so we're here.
I'm sorry, I apologize. This was one thing. Wendy wanted to add just one thing, if she may, about how can she?
No, I'll add it after.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, Yitz and Shelly.
So we are now here as full-time residents in Hollywood. We have no children living in Florida. We have 3 children and their families. Our oldest daughter lives in Ma'ale Adumim, Israel. Our son lives in New Rochelle with his family. And our youngest daughter lives in Highland Park, New Jersey with her family. So we commute regularly when COVID is not imposing.
We'll deal with that later.
But we commute regularly via Delta Airlines. And in terms of the support system here in Florida, someone, I'm not being original here, someone suggested that for those of us who don't have family members living immediately here, our friends have become our family. And so to borrow from the song, when you're not with the ones you love the ones you're with. We have developed an amazing circle of friends. And I want to get back to Rabbi and Rebbetzin Davis for a minute, because there was an immediate connection. Rabbi Davis and I were classmates at Yeshiva College and at Yitz. So I knew Rabbi Davis back in 1964, I think maybe even before Meira met him.
So you definitely have a good support system with the Davises, that's for sure. And I've been down to Hollywood enough, and I've seen what goes on there. It's just wonderful, beautiful. What about your experience with healthcare?
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
Okay, I just wanted to say about another, which I didn't get to mention, about why we chose to buy this house with extra bedrooms and bathrooms and a pool and a backyard, because we entertain, we invite, we have our children coming down very, often, certainly in the winter times, and friends come to stay over. And we wanted to have a spacious, comfortable way to invite our children and friends to spend time with us in Hollywood. So that was a very important decision, because we had been to a Century Village visiting my parents, who were one of the founders of the Century Village of Deerfield Beach, and they had the typical Century Village apartment, and it was difficult even for to bring one of our family, our family, our 3 children, to spend a week or so with them, and so we decided we wanted a home that could accommodate all 3 families if we had to, at least certainly 2 families, so that we can enjoy them, because as Yitz pointed out, that they live either in the Northeast or Israel. However, even though we are distant, our family WhatsApp group is busy all day long.
God bless WhatsApp. Okay. So let's ask you the next question. How long, by the time you decided that you wanted that house, you were going to relocate it, how long did it take to get it all together? You had to sell a house, right? You sold right away, or?
Well, we bought the house in Florida first. We still owned our house in Brooklyn. And at some point, there was a thought that this would be a vacation location for us. But then very quickly, we came to the conclusion it's a happier existence, a more comfortable existence in Florida, given our circumstances. So we sold the house in Brooklyn, and we moved within a year of buying the house in Florida. We moved into the house in Florida.
Wow, you got rid of everything, or you moved it? Wow.
We moved the furniture. So if we start at the earliest points, because we were planning this, our exit strategy began 5 years before we moved.
Very smart.
When I closed my own solo practice and moved all of my clients to a firm that was doing similar work, anticipating that someday I would want to say, fare thee well to the practice of law and to my clients. And as a result of that, if you want to start at the very earliest point, our first step was that professional move 5 years before we actually moved here. And then it took time to sell the house in Flatbush.
Get rid of stuff, I'm sure, decluttering.
Took like 6 months to get rid of 40 years of
wow.
Stuff.
You could give a session on that then. That's, you know what you guys didn't tell us, I just realized. Can you tell us what the healthcare situation, because you're there all the time.
Right.
How do you find it?
Okay, so the first thing that we did was we asked our physicians and healthcare providers in New York for referrals if they had any, and surprisingly, they did. So we found a dentist, we found other healthcare professionals here. The young Israel of Hollywood is populated by literally dozens of physicians. So to use a little Yiddish, "Se fehlt nicht." There are plenty of physicians available. There are hospitals within easy reach, and if you need, you just ask a friend or someone, and you get amazing referrals.
Okay, Wendy and Jay, when you decided that you were going to, buy and come down, how long did all that process take? Living in two places is definitely complicated.
Well, it was gradual for us because initially when we purchased, Wendy was still working. So we came down just for typical school vacation time. But then when she retired, we began to spend a little more time, and we extended it. We'd spend a few weeks, then we'd spend a month, and we ended up spending more time. And as we spent more time here, we also decided to make it a little more comfortable for us, and we did some renovations in the apartment, etc. Wendy?
Yeah. We are actually in a process of cleaning out our New York home. With the idea of selling within the next year or so, if possible. If we can clean out 48 years worth of items, it's very hard because we have a lot of duplicates here, so we won't need the same things if we move. We're also in the throes of whether or not we're going to get another place to live in New York so that we're closer to our children in New York, because 2 of our 3 children still live in New York. And we're also thinking now about whether we should get an apartment, a condo in New York. We can't build on to our children's homes in New York, which several of our friends have done. They've sold their homes and they've actually built onto their children's homes. We don't have that opportunity. So we have other ideas in our minds, but we do know we have this place full time. So until we make a decision in the future about whether or not we want a second home now in New York, we can stay here, which is really convenient. We just find it exceptionally convenient, and as Yitz said also, living down here without having to go through harsh winters, and even though I do have friends who absolutely adore the winter. I have my grandchildren down here, love to come up in the winter time, love to go up to New York in the winter time just to see snow. I've seen it for most of my life. I'm fine, I'm happy, I'm sated, okay? I love the fact that if it rains here, it stops quickly. I love the roads here. The roads are smooth, the roads are easy, they're wide. I love the shopping. Everything is within a very, very short distance from here. I don't have to pay for parking. I don't have to go up and row after row or level after level in a parking lot and then pay for it as I do in New York. Everything is green all year round. It's just—
How are you handling, I'm sorry, how are you handling the fact that with COVID, you're there in the summer and you haven't been, this is your first summer, right?
We're actually here as of now. We're here 9 months, so that's almost a full year, which gives us that that impetus to sell and come down here for longer periods of time. I mean, 9 months is a very long time for us, and it is because of COVID. New York was the epicenter, and here we were doing fine. But as the story goes, we actually have plans to go up to New York starting, we're going to start driving up on Monday. And it's funny because I said to Jay, before we know it, we're going to be turning around and coming back, because we usually come down in October after the holidays. And so that gives us about 3 months to work on the house up there.
There are 2 quick points. You brought up COVID. Down here, we also felt somewhat protected because we were in a gated community here. And many of the people here were not running out to stores or running out to beaches and parks. And in addition, there was a great support system here. We do have a daughter who lives here, but even if we didn't, there was a support system. Besides the friends, the synagogue was providing services, the local politicians. I happen to be the head of the association here, and I was in contact. There were local politicians, the Jewish Federation here, which is about 10 minutes away, were providing shopping, providing rides, providing other amenities for people who could not get out, or who didn't drive, or didn't want to go out, or had compromised immune systems and were reluctant to, or afraid to, wasn't safe. So there were other supports besides friends and family. And just one other issue, or one other item to relate to what Shelly said, a house versus an apartment. Mm-hmm. Initially, I also was a little bit concerned about getting an apartment, having come from a house. I had a thought, wait a minute. We had our house, it was a detached house. We had no neighbors, left, right, above. I said, I'm going to move into an apartment. People upstairs, next door, there's going to be so much noise, people yelling, screaming. Of course, I realized, number one, there aren't kids here. You don't have kids chasing each other above you, below you, around the house, etc.
Except during the holidays.
Sometimes when kids visit, but that's okay. It's nice to see youth. It's nice to see signs of life once in a while. It's nice to see strollers parked in front of the shul instead of walkers. So it is nice to see youth here once in a while. But the other point is, when we have kids visit, there is no typical apartment in Century Village, because there are 3 or 4 different types of apartments. And there are something called executives, which are huge apartments. There are corner apartments that are bigger. We have a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment. So we have had a family of 6 from Kew Garden Hills visit us. 2 of them are in the bedroom, 2 of them are in the porch. We have a pull-out couch in our Florida room. I guess, is it a Florida room in Florida? Mm-hmm. And we have a couch in the living room. So it is doable. And sometimes during the holidays, for example, during Pesach, we know people who have said, listen, our friend is not going to be here for Passover. Can we just use your house for sleeping? We're just going to have a couple of kids sleep there. And people have arranged things when there's multiple families coming down. So it's definitely doable.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. I'm sorry, go ahead. You finish.
I was going to say also, when we chose this particular apartment, we had been shown a number of apartments in different buildings, and there were different sized apartments as well. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons why we picked the apartment, for example, that we have now, it was a little larger than some of the ones that we had seen, not as large as an executive corner, but it was large enough for us, had enough space for us. But it was also, we picked the first floor because psychologically for us, the first floor was the closest thing we had to a house. So we parked the car and walked right into the house. We didn't have to go up steps, no elevator. And we also have a door leading out to the back, which is a grassy area along with the lake. So we've sat out there a number of times as well. And when the kids were little, we used to go out in the back, and Jay would play ball with them in the back on the grassy area. So for us, that was a psychological perk.
I can still play ball.
Yeah, he can still play ball.
Okay. Okay. Yitz and Shelly, I wanted to circle back to how it's been for you in Hollywood during the COVID situation. I mean, now I know that there's the upsurge in Florida, while way back when I was living in ground zero. Now it's, I guess, more you guys. So what is your experience, and how do you feel that the community has been responding?
Well, our rabbinic leadership and lay leadership have been, for the past 4 months, providing many Zoom shiurim entertainment programs, for weekly, daily, weekly, so that we, they try to keep our minds stimulated and entertained. But I do want to just mention one outstanding event that we had during the COVID crisis, and that was on Yom HaAtzmaut. On Yom HaAtzmaut, the shul, in conjunction with the local day school, Browser Maimonides Academy, organized a car parade through the neighborhood to show our achdut and love of Medinat Israel. Hundreds of cars were lined up to drive through the neighborhood with flags on the cars, with dozens of spectators all along the parade route, singing, dancing, and celebrating. It was just an event of pure joy. And it just shows you what I wanted to say earlier, that I wanted to just describe what kind of the young Israel. The young Israel is the centrist, OU, very Zionistic. We have a huge B'nai Akiva chapter here. It is vibrant, it is hopping, it is with a constant programs and shiurim, and also in conjunction what Yitz said about our friends. We enjoy long Friday night dinners and Shabbat lunches together. We used to. Right, we used to. Right. We hope
you'll do it. We hope we're all doing all that stuff really, really soon. Pre-COVID, post-COVID, yes.
Right. And we've joined a wonderful Sunday morning at AM Co-Ed Gemara Shir that we have every Sunday. Well, again, before we once a week we attend together, and I have some classes that I go to.
Wait, Shelly, you got to talk to the microphone.
A women's Tanakh shir, Nach shir really, and I also am a regular at the Sisterhood Book Club meetings once a month. So we really feel that we have integrated very, very seamlessly, very nicely in the community. And we're just, it's just, and of course, the weather is great.
I will just add, in terms of COVID, that the Young Israel of Hollywood obviously shut down early in terms of minyanim. As soon as it was possible, they erected tents for outdoor minyanim that were strictly regulated in terms of attendance, spacing, social distancing, and hygiene. And about 2 weeks ago, the main shul and the social hall were opened for indoor minyanim, all subject to whatever developments come along. I will also say that, thank God, the spike of infection is not obvious to us in the Young Israel community. So yes, there are a number of people who took ill, but I count them on the fingers of one hand as far as victims that I know.
Wonderful. I just wanted to, we have a few more minutes left. I want to ask each one, Yitz and Shelly, we'll start with you. If you had to do this over again, or anything else, is there anything else that you would do differently? Do you have any recommendations for people who are considering relocating? Any, tricks, tips or tricks that you did that you thought would work well for people?
Overall, we're pretty happy with the way things went. We had a lot of support, and I saw her in one of the, Ellen Rotterdam helped us find our house. She was already living here, and she helped us identify the house into which we moved. I would make a suggestion to people who are thinking, especially if you're going to live in Florida only part-time, banking institutions that have branches in both your home state and in Florida. You don't want to realize one day you have no way of reaching your money. And
good tip.
But otherwise, no, we were pretty happy with how our process went. Would I do anything differently? Yeah, there's one thing, because I discovered a geographic anomaly over the 8 years that we're living here. When we first bought the house, I drove the distance between the house and the shul, and I clocked it at 7/10 of a mile, and it feels a lot longer than that now. So when you buy, especially if you're buying in an open community where you have to walk on Shabbos to the shul, you have to anticipate what your lifestyle is going to be, not the day that you're buying, but 10 years down the road.
I think that's a very good point. Wendy and Jay, can you share with us any suggestions? Because your situation of starting out as snowbirds and maybe one day living there full time, anything you would have done differently, or any recommendations you can share?
I just want to make a comment here about the activities and opportunities that are here in Century Village. And one of the things that I say to people who ask about it, and when I start going through all of the opportunities that are here, is I say you can do as much here or as little here as you want. Nobody's ever forcing you to go to the clubhouse every day or do the sports, because I have friends who prefer to just lay back and keep away from a lot of people. And then I have friends who are very, very social and want that sociability. And that's what we have here. We also have been very fortunate that because Jay and I have joined various clubs and have taken different classes over the years and have been part of the outreach program here, we feel very fortunate that we've met people from all different walks of life. I mean, we came here as an empty slate, and it's basically most people did. We didn't find out about some of the professional backgrounds until after we had already, been acquaintances or friends for a period of time, which was really nice. It reminded me of when my kids were first going to school, and we would go with strollers and we would meet the other parents and the kids would be together and we'd start building our group of friends. Well, we didn't have kids in Century Village. We were older adults. And so we met people based on who they were and how we were similar or different and what we could offer each other. And hence we built up our support systems that way. But we really learned a lot here, and we've met a lot of people from a lot of different communities, a lot of different areas of religiosity. We have those who are very Orthodox. We have those who are not really too much into it, but we play tennis together and we play mahjong together and we walk together and we do things together and we do things for each other, especially during COVID, when you've built up a community like this. We've had friends just yesterday who were at a store and called us up and said, we happen to be here. Would you like us to pick something up for you? And they did. And this is what we have. You don't think twice because you're older, you're wiser, and you have the availability of just being yourself here, whoever you are.
In terms of doing differently, there are a few things. Yeah. We were very lucky. As I said, we purchased this without knowing anything. But had I been a little wiser or not as lucky, I think it's not a bad idea. And we've recommended this to friends who have actually done it and then subsequently purchased apartments here, to come down for a weekend, come down for a few days, or spend up to a week and get to know the area. Mm-hmm. And people who are not set on Century Village can come down anyway to the area and take a drive around, see what's here. Because, for example, there are other areas here. I know people have gone to Boynton and to Delray, other areas. One of the advantages that Century Village has is that we are very close to restaurants and shopping. And people who live in Boynton, who live in Delray, etc., have to come to Boca to get to kosher restaurants, to get to supermarkets, etc. So really you should check it out. You should in fact drive around the area, get a feel for the area to see what it's like. I would say don't drive down, or don't necessarily come down in the middle of July or August.
If you can help it, it's not so bad. You get used to it.
It's a lot, well, for your first time.
Yeah. Pretty hot up here too. We're in the middle of a heat spell in New York. It is not pleasant.
Right. no matter where you, right. If you're sometime it's summertime, but if you come down in January and you drive around and you see all the green and the water, it's a really nice feeling.
It took us a couple of seasons to realize that people who are Floridians tend to get very crazy when the temperature goes down to like 65 or 70. So like we'd be down there and we'd have no jackets on, no sweaters on. And, we'd see people with boots and a jacket, and like we get hysterical on that because it's all relative. It's all relative to what's comfortable for you.
There are a couple people from New York who are dying to use their fur coats. They just want to show them off, and they have no chance.
Got it. Before we end, Yitz and Shelly, do you have any last minute things to say?
I just wanted to also mention that since that anyone who would like to think about coming to a neighborhood community with people of all ages, you should come and spend Shabbatot with the community also. But I also want to say that we do a few years ago, the shul encouraged the formation of our empty nesters group, which is to plan and have activities for the 60+ group. And over the years, we have had some nice programs. And one I want to highlight was that we sponsored a 3-day kosher cruise to the Bahamas, which was really a lot of fun, and whoever went, had a great time together. Yitz mentioned about that our kids do not live with us. They live in New Rochelle, New Jersey, and Israel, but we do try to spend almost all of the Chagim with, going up either to New York, New Jersey, or to Israel. And we try to go up, like we made a deal. We said, okay, we want to move to Florida. We want to retire in Florida. So we are going to try as much as we possibly can to fly up to New York or to Israel and spend time. We've had gone to the name, so we had 3 bar mitzvahs, b'nei mitzvot. We had about 2 or 3 bat mitzvahs. We went to many graduations. And this upcoming year, we expect, if all's well, B'ezrat Hashem, to attend our grandson Joseph's bar mitzvah and our granddaughter Leah's graduation from elementary school, and the wedding of our granddaughter Nava, who is from our daughter and son-in-law from Ma'aleh Adumim.
Oh,
so
that
with
God's help, that should be, everybody should be able to travel, enjoy all these simchas, and I mean, let's hope to live in a post-COVID world very soon.
Amen.
I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank the Tuchmans and the Goldbergs for their wonderful sharing their experiences with us. I know I received a lot of very, very helpful information. We really appreciate it. As I had mentioned earlier, we'd like to highlight some other communities. So if anybody who is watching would want to share information about any of the places, doesn't have to just be in Florida. There are other places that people retire to. So we're happy to share any other places. We'll be doing them, throughout the next few months, every couple of weeks. So please be in touch. With God's help, next week on Tuesday, we'll be talking about relationship rules and respect with Faye Wilbur, both a professional and friend of mine. She's an LCSW, and she's presented for many times. I'm sure it will be very, very helpful. Thursday, of course, next week is Tisha B'Av, so we will not be having a spirit program, but that doesn't mean that the OU doesn't have plenty to offer for you. Both Rabbi Weinreb and Rabbi Weil will be doing programming all day. So I'll be sending out the link to those programs that you sign up for. I know that I spend Tisha B'Av with them all the time online. It's a very, very meaningful way. I want to just thank everybody again. Have a good Shabbos. Be safe and healthy. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Again, thank you, Wendy and Jay, and Yitz and Shelly. Okay, take care, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Close. Who else is here? Back.
Hi, Rochelle. Hi, Stu.
Back.
Hi, Norm.
Stu?
Hi, Andrea, David.
Go back to Stu.
Thank you so much. We can't believe how many people
Stu.
actually came to hear us.
No, you turned on the wrong channel by mistake.
You get so nervous, you know, but come to Century Village. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Okay.
We love the people here. They're wonderful. Bye.
Okay.